All right, we're off.
All right. And Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Okay, I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to
the flag
of the United
States
States
of America,
And to the
the
republic,
republic which stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
liberty.
liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
I guess we're a little rusty. Okay, so Lauren, do you want to, I guess we're starting with the reorganization according to the agenda. Do you want to talk us through that?
We do roll call first.
Roll call is fine, yep.
Okay.
Carol
Thanks,
Smith.
Jan.
Yep. Sure. Janine Riley,
Here.
Felix Ramundo,
here.
Kyle Elliott,
Here.
Megan.
So the first item on your agenda tonight is reorganization for the authority. It's usually, the authority usually reorganizes at the first meeting of January every year. What you need to do during reorganization is you need to elect your officers, and you need to select who your right to know officer is, and you need to set your meeting dates, times, and location. Most of these locations have been on Zoom, and I think that's the way we've been advertising them. But normally what we would have done last year is we would have said that the location was at the authority's offices and we would have given the address. We're still going to recommend that you do that in case we return to in-person meetings, but the website will always indicate that we're doing these by Zoom. So the first order of business is normally the election of the chairperson, or I should say the election of a temporary chair or the appointment of a temporary chair to handle the nominations and the election of a president. Some boards will choose to actually nominate a board member to be temporary chair. In some of our places, Lauren or I just fulfill that role, and all we do is call for nominations for president. That's at the board's discretion, or chair, I should say, not president. So if you would like, I could call for a nomination for chair.
For a temporary chair.
Well, if you want to do it by temporary chair, you can do it that way, or you can just have me serve as the temporary chair, whatever you'd like.
I'm fine with Mike running with it.
I'll second that.
Okay. So do we have any nominations for the position of chair for the Borough of Conshohocken Authority for 2021?
I have a nomination, Mike.
Okay.
I would like to nominate Janine Riley for chair.
Do we have a second for Janine Riley as chair?
I would second Janine Riley as chair.
Do we have any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, we will close nominations, and I will ask that Shannon call the roll for Janine Riley as chair.
Okay. Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley,
If it's not nepotism, sure. I'll sign on.
Felix Ramundo,
None.
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
and Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
So Janine, you are now chair, so I will turn the meeting over to you and sink back into the obscurity I so richly deserve. And you can take nominations for vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and I don't know if we have secretary and treasurer, and then I don't know if we have, do we have an assistant secretary treasurer? No. So then somebody's just a member, so.
Okay. Yeah, that was me for the longest time. How the tables have turned. Okay. And Mike, obscurity isn't going to be that obscure because I remember this, Carol, when you took over. even though we've sat at all these meetings, I don't know how actually to run this, so you're not going to be that experienced.
All right, sounds
You're
good.
going to be on the sidelines calling some plays. You and Lauren.
Sounds good.
So anyway, okay, then let's, we have to appoint the rest of our officers. So are there any nominations for vice chair? I would nominate, if I'm allowed, I would nominate Carol, you know, to serve as vice chair if she would like.
You are allowed to make that nomination.
This is Kyle. I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations? Okay. So hearing none, well, Shannon, can we do a roll call on that?
Sure. Okay. Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes, thank you.
Felix Ramundo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
My battery was dying there.
All right. Well, congratulations, Carol.
Thank you. Congratulations, Janine.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to secretary. Are there any nominations for secretary? Would anyone
Are
like
there
to do
any?
it?
Yeah, that's
I
what I
was
was
gonna
just going to ask.
It looks like right now, Felix, you were the secretary and Kyle, you were the treasurer. Felix, would you like to continue on as secretary? That work?
Sure.
Can I nominate you? Can I nominate?
And I'll second.
All right. Are there any other nominations?
I will nominate Kyle as treasurer.
All right. Okay. Can we do them both? Do they have to be separate?
Yeah,
votes?
well, you should do the secretary first.
Okay. All right. Then let's take a vote, Shannon, on the motion to have Felix Ramundo appointed as secretary of the authority board.
Okay. Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Ramundo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
All right. And were there any other nominations for treasurer?
Kyle Elliott.
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
yeah. Aside from Kyle, yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't know if you had heard me or not.
No, I thank you. I was just, Jane, I don't know if you have any interest. I don't want to
No.
be in your way. Okay.
Like
All right.
between the sewer authority and council and the other committees I'm on, I think
Right.
at this point I would be happy to be a member.
All right. Well,
Understood.
then, that being the case, let's take a vote on the motion to have Kyle Elliott as treasurer of the authority board.
We need a second.
I'll second.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Ramundo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay. Well, congratulations to us all. And here we are for another good year. So the next thing, right, is setting the meeting time and location. And as Mike and Lauren, you both recommended, we will, I guess, continue to use the authority address as the location, but temporarily we will be operating under Zoom, right? For the foreseeable future, at least the next couple months. Hopefully, at some point this year, we'll be able to get back together in person, which would be nice. So do we need a motion on that?
Yes, you need a motion to set the authority board of directors meeting for the fourth Tuesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. in the authority's offices located at, somebody help me out, 601 East Elm Street, Conshohocken, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And does the fourth Tuesday of every month at 6:30 still work for everybody? Still works
Yes.
for me. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, then
Yeah.
would
I'll
anyone
make
like
that
to-
motion.
All right. Thank you.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
And Ed, no rush. Could you let me in to the WebEx when you get a chance?
Absolutely.
All right, so, and then we need a vote on that, right, Shannon?
Yes.
Yes.
So Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
And the only other thing you need to do is appoint a right to know officer.
Okay.
But I will say this: if you're not changing your right to know officer, then you don't need to make any changes.
And currently Ed is our right to know officer.
Okay.
And
I'm
I
fine
I'll
with
make
that.
that motion.
Yep.
Okay. I'll
I'll
second
second.
if I can, yeah.
I'll third.
Paul? Do Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
and Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
And that's it.
All right. Well, we're through,
We have to appoint the engineer.
Oh, you're right. You're right, Felix.
We can appoint our
Again, your
professional?
engineer, there's no requirement that you do it. We were appointed last month. We serve until replaced. So unlike other entities where you're supposed to appoint the whole professional staff, we serve until replaced. I don't know if Fred has submitted a letter for reappointment, but you can do that if you would like to, but there's no requirement.
Shouldn't he provide a letter stating his rates?
As they always have, the rates have remained unchanged.
Yep.
And they continue to be since I've been appointed day one.
Right. But as housekeeping, you usually state your rates for reappointment purposes. Your rates and fee schedules. You know what I'm referring to.
Absolutely. I can submit that letter. Absolutely.
Basically, it goes on record. It's just housekeeping purposes. I understand.
I will submit it
With all
and confirm my rates.
okay.
right. So
So should
I'll
we
make a
still have,
motion that we keep Ebert Engineering
okay,
as our sewer authority engineering firm on record.
I agree.
I'll second.
Is that a roll call or that could be an all aye?
Roll call.
Everything, right, has to be roll call because we're Zoom,
Yeah.
right?
Video, everything.
Everything's
Yeah.
supposed to be roll call because
Yep.
so the
So-
members of the public can see who's voting what.
So Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
okay, Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Thank you guys. And I will get that letter out tomorrow morning,
Thanks, Fred.
confirming my rates.
Can we do the same thing for our accountant contingent on our receiving her rate structure?
Certainly. All right, I guess can I make that motion? To reappoint Brinker Simpson, Kathy Seiler as our accountant for the authority, again, pending the submission of the confirmation of the rate as we did, Fred, and Ebert Engineering. Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Oh, sorry, Jane. Didn't mean to.
Okay, Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay.
that everything, Mike?
I think, yep, that's it.
I believe that is.
Okay. So now we move on to public comment, and see we have a visitor, Mr. Miller, or maybe someone else. Kyle, I know you're one of the call-in users.
Kyle was number 2. We have a call-in user 3 as well.
3. Yes. So I can see Mr. Miller, your name, and then call-in user number 3. Are there any public comments that you'd like to make at this time?
Mr. Miller, you're muted.
Hi.
Oh, Ms. Miller, sorry.
I'm Joe Miller.
Oh, Joe Miller? Oh, okay. I can't. Sorry, I can't hear you, Mr. Miller. I don't know why I'm leaning in.
I'm muted.
Oh, now you're muted. You are unmuted. Mr. Miller, you're muted again. Could you try to unmute?
Do you hear me better now?
Oh, yes, absolutely. 100%.
Okay, fine. Sorry, I had to make some adjustments. I'm on the call because I learned that there's a consideration to sell the sewer authority, and I just wanted to register my thoughts about that, and it's pretty simple. And I would hope that there would be a very thorough examination of what the pros and cons of this is, because from what I understand from the council meeting the other day, is the borough needs to get money for roads, for road repair, and in my mind, to sell an asset like the sewer authority to repair roads is sort of the wrong thing to do, because this asset is something that will be carried forth for many, many years, and I'm sure the roads will have to be repaired again in 10 or 15 years. So it's more of a maintenance thing against, something that's infrastructure. That's one thing, and I would hope that there's some very good minds that apply to whether or not, one, it's called for, that is to sell the authority, and two, what the value of the authority is. I think I'm not a person in finance, but I would think that if you just put it out for bid and there's only 1 or 2 bidders, that's not going to give you a good market rate. So those are my comments, and I just hope that you all make some careful deliberations about this, because it is, I think, a very serious step.
Well, Mr. Miller, I completely, and I think we all completely agree with you. What I would tell you is that, fortunately or unfortunately, the decision does not lay with us as a board. That is and Mike, Lauren, even Jane, as a council member, if you'd like to jump in and correct me on anything I'm saying, please feel free to do so. But while we all agree that this decision should be very thoroughly analyzed and weighed, we are not the board that will be making that ultimate decision, nor will we be, seeing the bids and making that, doing any analysis. Borough Council is undertaking that inquiry and that research, and from my understanding, is analyzing all of the borough assets. Jane, I think I'm correct in saying that, and will be making their decision and analyzing that. So I agree with all your comments, and I'm sure that the members of Borough Council and the professionals working with them, will be performing a very thorough analysis as you asked, and also taking into account the other things. Now, what I would I guess urge you to do, like I said, while we welcome your comment, and Jane is a council member and she's hearing it, I would say to you that if you have any of those, if you want to voice your concerns to more people, the appropriate place to really do so would be at the Borough Council meetings. That's where they will be taking the public comment and and really kind of, they're the power players in this.
No,
So-
I understand. Thank you very much for that
Oh, no, well,
clarification.
thank you. We appreciate you.
And I would agree with Janine, Mr. Miller, that the best thing to do would be come to a council meet or, attend a council meeting via Zoom and
Mike.
let all of council hear you.
I'll
That would-
follow up then. Yes. Thank you,
I
Jim.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And I completely agree with Mr. Miller's statement. And I think, and Janine's correct, it's up to Borough Council that makes this decision. And gotta speak up there. Typically, when someone speaks, they would say their residency. And you ask them, they say, I'm Felix Raimondo from 232 West 9th Avenue.
Yeah, we do have to have their name and address for the additional public comments this evening.
Oh,
Felix is
Oh.
correct.
Oh,
yeah.
I apologize.
It's Joe
Okay.
Miller, and I'm at West 4th Avenue. I've been here since 1982.
I'd like to mention that Mr. Miller was also the one that gave us the recommendation to put our forms up at the borough office.
Oh,
And to me, that was a helpful efficiency that's added to this. So I just
Yeah, very
want to
constructive.
recognize Joe
Yes.
for that.
well, thank you. Thank you for that. We appreciate you, adding to our board. It's great. Thank you.
Welcome. So I'm going to mute now. Any other comments?
Are there any other public comments?
Hi, I have a comment. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Oh, hi. My name is Lisa Billick, and I live at 804 Forest Street in Conshohocken. This is my first time I've ever been to a sewer authority meeting, and I just
Welcome.
am trying, thank you. I'm just trying to become more informed. I'm very much in support of our sewer authority, and I believe that you've done an excellent job, and I'm very opposed to the sale of it. It's one of the biggest assets I believe that we have, and once it's sold, it's sold. There's no going back, and it's going to, it really is going to impact our bills. And I have gone to, I commented at the meeting and attended the council meeting. I've written to Anita Barton. I've been going back and forth with her about this since 2019. That's how long. And I also wrote to Colleen, can't think of her married
Leonard.
name now.
Yeah.
But
Leonard.
Leonard, yes,
Yep.
I wrote to her, and I keep getting told that it's just a long time in the future, and you're still gathering all this information. But I think that definitely steps are being taken to, that are definitely moving in that direction to selling it. And I did think that information was already gathered from a private company. They had do a study or something on this. So I don't know. I don't get the feel that it may be months, but I just think that kind of they're I feel it like it's getting evaded when you're talking. It's just like almost like, don't worry. This is a long way. We're just looking. In fact, I'm quoting that. We're just looking, when in fact it's a very serious thing. Like, they're seriously contemplating it. You're not really just looking at it. So I just feel it's such a bad idea. Does the sewer authority, were you given any time frame for like what information or assistance they need from you in pursuing a sale? Or is there an estimate of the value of the asset or anything like that?
Okay, go ahead, Jane, please, if you want to.
Hi, Lisa. This is Jane Flanagan. I'm one of the council women. And I do remember when you called in to the last meeting. And we're not trying to be evasive. We're trying to be very transparent that we are still just in the investigating stage. We had a tentative value that was all over the place. So now we're going to get an actual value. it's impossible to make any type of decision without hard facts. So that's what we're looking to see right now, what the marketplace would offer. And quite frankly, it might not even be worth pursuing once we get a value. That might be the end of it. We have no, formed idea at this point. It's not being evasive. It's just, we're still in the process, and it is taking a long time. As you said, since 2018, it's been discussed.
Well, I did ask if it would be possible, what I was asking, and I kind of got rebuffed quite a little bit strongly on it, is that in Plymouth, when they were looking into doing this, they were just looking, they were investigating. They did send something to the residents in the mail, letting them know that this is what we're looking at. I've asked about that and kind of just been told, well, you do advertise and all of that, but not everyone is really on top of, looking at the sign outside or online. So a lot of people don't even know that this is a thought in your head. And after you get all the information, will there even be time for people to speak up before you make that decision? That's my concern. I just think residents should have, as much time and as much input into how they feel, because it's permanent. It's permanent. It's going to affect us personally and financially, and you'll have no control over that. And it's going to go for profit, whereas the sewer authority, they may have to raise rates, or you may even have to raise taxes for some of the things that are needed, but at least it's money staying in our borough and not going to some company making a profit. So that's really all I wanted to say. Just and just please, you're on the council, Jane. If you could just think about maybe taking extra steps to let people know. I know it's a pain, because then if they object, you have to listen to it, but at least they'll feel they were heard.
Right. And possibly we could send something out with the next round of sewer bills. That might be, if we have information at that point.
I was going to ask, Jane, if that would be appropriate, or Mike or Lauren, I don't know if you
Right.
I was like, I don't, again, like I would say for us as a board, I don't think any of us personally, or as a board would be opposed to it. However, and I think we would actually all be very much willing to do so. That being said, I don't know if we're stepping on council's toes, by doing so.
If council is trying to be transparent to the residents, there should be no issue with you letting people know. You're just letting them know. And maybe a lot of people won't object or anything, but we have a right to know it. It's going to affect everyone. So I say to you that if they object to you putting something in the sewer bill, just saying, hey, this is getting looked at, and informing them, then that's not transparency from where I stand. It just isn't.
And I'm all for sending something to the residents. My question is it the proper channels, as Janine said? Should it come from just Borough Council, or can it be included in the sewer authority's bills? I feel like people look at their sewer authority bills more than they look at anything council sends out.
Well, Jane, if I may, excuse me, and if I may state, we are run at the behest of the borough.
Right.
So the borough, just say we can put it on the bill, we'll send it out. I mean, because we run it we are appointed by you. So,
but I would disagree, Carol, respectfully. We're a completely independent body from Borough Council. So whatever the authority board decides it wants to do is a decision, as far as putting out notices or something like that, is entirely up to the authority board, and council is a separate legal entity. So, and as Jane just pointed out, that people look at their sewer authority bills maybe more closely than they look at newsletters. So if you really want to get the information out to the public, maybe you can put something in the sewer authority bills or whatever.
Well, thank you for that clarification.
Just information.
Right. And I know when we have zoning hearings, residents will come in and say they never got a notice, and we know they were mailed to the addresses. So I do think that if it says Borough of Conshohocken, people often toss it in the trash, where if it says their sewer bill, they're going to open it and read it.
I agree. That seems like a very good idea.
Thank
Thank you
I
so
guess,
much.
yeah, well.
Thank you for listening.
Oh, no, I mean, I think,
call your council person.
I think Anita is Ms. Lilick's council person.
Who is?
Anita.
Anita.
I talked to Anita.
Yeah.
I believe me, I've gone back and forth with Anita many times, but
Good.
you know, I feel better even just from this meeting, and thank you again.
Oh, no, well, we're glad you, and I guess, you know, that being said, I don't know if this is the appropriate time or to continue this, you know, piece of discussion, but I mean, Mike, if you're saying that that is something that we can do, you know, and being, you know, neutral, just for information purposes only, this, you know, please be aware that this is something that, you know, Borough is looking into. You know, I think that, and Jane, you think that it would be, you know, appropriate and something that is, you know, a way that this would get information to all of our constituents. Is this the proper time to say that we would like to do that? Mike, Lauren? What are your thoughts?
I think as Jane had indicated, it's still in the information gathering stage, and the Borough Council and the Borough Authority have the same interest of what's in the best interest for the residents and ratepayers of Conshohocken. And the more informed people are, the more, you know, government is best when the public is informed. So if you wanted to, you know, put something out, basically just saying that this is an issue that is going on in the borough right now, and you should be aware of what's going on in the borough right now.
Well, then, do we need a motion to include that, or is that just something we can do in our next billing?
I think, you know, I don't think you need a formal motion to do it. I think if council is comfortable, not council, excuse me, the authority is comfortable with doing that, then we, you know, Terry and Lauren and I and Ed and Shannon can work together to put something, just something informational together that can get out.
Perfect.
Well, then I think we should do that.
Thank you.
Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
I agree, and I thank that caller for that excellent suggestion.
Yes.
Yeah, that was some good points by that caller, and I appreciate
Yes.
that input.
Yes.
And I agree
And
that we should get the information out to our ratepayers.
Yep. And thank you for, you know, Mrs. Lick, for giving us the ability to kind of flesh that out, because I think it was something that we were all consider, you know, can we or can we not do it? Is it the proper channel? So this gave us a great forum to do that. So again, thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
And Ms. Riley, I don't know how we've been handling this in meetings past, but we do have a comment from someone on the chat. Have we been including them in the public comment, or?
I don't know that we've ever had
Mike.
that comment before, quite honestly.
Well, you have a
First
chat
time.
from you have a chat from Mr. Miller where he says, I think giving notice to the public through the billing cycle is an excellent suggestion for transparency. And you have a chat from a Jane Kelly saying, I agree with caller and Joe above, more transparency is good. Is the Aqua proposal to buy the sewer authority published online?
Okay, and Ms. Kelly, I think I see you on the phone, although you're muted. For purposes of our record keeping, could you please give us your residence where you live in the borough? Either in chat or unmute.
And Janine, it looks like there may be 2 other public comments here, just to let you know.
Okay. Okay, so I think Mike, did Ms. Kelly share her address? I thought
She did.
saw that pop up.
Let me see. 332 Spring Mill Avenue.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm sorry, what was her last question about the Aqua proposal?
Is the Aqua proposal to buy the sewer authority published online?
I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, I was, I don't think they've even bid yet. I think the motion for bidding or the request to put out a bid has just begun. So I don't think, and Jane, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that anyone has submitted a bid or a value or a proposal or anything.
Correct, Janine.
Okay. And I guess I don't know the answer to the question of whether that information will be public or not. I'm not sure if that's appropriate, or I just don't know.
I don't think it's public until a bid has been accepted, and
Okay.
Mike Warren would know that better than I. But
I think
it's-
that's normally the way that it's done,
It-
that they're not made public until they're accepted.
right, and then all the bids are made public.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Are there any other public comments? Okay, and nothing else in our chat?
Nope.
Then,
Nope.
I guess we will move on from public comment. Thank you all for your thoughts and opinions, and we value them, and we hear you, so thank you. And I don't think we have any invited guests tonight, do we? Nope. So moving on, chairperson minutes. I don't have any. I was not prepared with any. Carol, I don't know, as our outgoing chair, if you have anything that you would like to share, or
I do.
or
Let me
I was
turn
gonna say
off-
also, maybe Carol, after you, if at the beginning of this year, if any of our other board members have anything that they would like to share. I did not prepare anything and I'm not really ready to speak on that, but.
All I wanted to say is that I was happy that Terry joined us, and I think Terry and Ed and Shannon are doing great work together. And going into 2021, we still have to be careful about COVID, which is something that obviously I'm passionate about. So that was all I was going to say, and Happy New Year.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they would like to add at this point? Just comments from the board before we get into the approval of the minutes and going forward? All right. Hearing none. Then let's move on to the approval of the December 17th, 2020 meeting minutes.
I just have one observation before we approve the minutes, and I had had a brief call with Lauren today about it. I think the voting for council process, there was some confusion going on. My intent was to retain Rudolph Clark, but obviously it's the motion is approved 3-2, about a third of the way down the page. So I know my vote was consistent with what Felix had did before me, but my intent, and I think just some confusion, was to retain Rudolph Clark. I don't know if there's anything we can do to amend it. If not, I mean, it doesn't change the outcome regardless, but it's just something that I thought I'd raise before we just go ahead and approve the minutes.
Okay, I don't know. Is there anything that we can do to amend the minutes? Can we,
Well,
or can we amend the vote, or?
If there was some confusion, as Mr. Elliott has indicated,
Elliot,
and
Kyle,
and
whatever
when
you
we
want to call
looked
them.
at the minutes, when we looked at the video, we kind of thought that there was some confusion. If his intention was to vote yes for us, then the minutes can be amended to reflect what he intended to vote, and not how it shows up in the minutes.
Okay. All right, then Shannon, if you wouldn't mind making that modification, please. Thank you. Okay, so that will be reflected as we're in.
Thank you.
Revision. And with that one, taking into account that one revision, do I have a motion to approve the Borough of Conshohocken Authority meeting minutes from December 17th, 2020?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
All right.
Oh.
Shannon, you're up.
Okay. Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith. Carol, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay, Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay. So moving on to our financial report. Okay, sorry, I'm just taking notes. All right. Financial reports. Bills for the month. Does anyone have any questions on the bills? Nope, no questions. All right, well, hearing none, do I have a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $114,181.19?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right.
Janine
And-
Riley,
Yes, please.
Carol Smith,
Did you hear me?
no,
Yes. I'm sorry. I guess there's a delay.
yep, that's okay. Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay. I guess, are there any other questions on our financial report? Am I missing any steps here? Please, Felix, Carol, anyone who's been a
Good.
past chair, jump in if I'm skipping things.
You're doing fine.
I'm working off memory here. This is muscle memory as to what everyone before me has said.
You got to look up the cheat sheet I sent you from the summer.
All right. Okay.
We make a motion to pay the bills and then we make a motion to accept the financial report.
All right. Well, do we have a motion to accept the financial report then?
That motion.
I'll make that motion. Second it.
Okay.
Okay. Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
I did have a question before we moved on.
Okay.
I wasn't, it was in regards to the escrow summary.
Sure.
Echo Ridge.
Yes. So
I see that they're in arrears by $4,900.
yes, so we are, and I don't know if Lauren wants to talk on this, but the last property in that development has sold, and we did send them the full escrow that they needed to pay before it went to settlement, but we still have not received the escrow.
Right, so the title company, I believe, is holding on to the amount that was liened, because I think that the property owner was indicating that there was an amount in dispute. We have conveyed to the developer that the board did reject his settlement offer, so we did work with the title company to get those funds released, but I believe the title company is holding on to those funds because the property was liened.
Funds sit at this time with the title company,
I believe so, yes.
but if they're holding it, can we lien the property? Because obviously the transition went through. Doesn't all liens have to be cleared before a transition goes through?
That's really the title company's prerogative, so we won't release the lien until the lien is satisfied. So until we receive the funds, the lien won't be marked satisfied with the depository. So that protects the authority and the authority's ability to recover those funds.
So,
The other,
so Lauren, if I'm understanding correctly, essentially whoever bought this property bought encumbered property.
correct.
All right. Well,
That's why we do it.
Do you anticipate the title company to release the money they withheld to satisfy the lien?
They should. There's really no reason they wouldn't in order to get that satisfied. So I'll work with Shannon tomorrow to reach out to the title company and find out what the status is.
Have you talked to the title company yet?
Shannon has. I have not.
Yeah, so we talked to the title company, and that's when they said that there was the dispute that was going on between the owner and us, and that's when Lauren came back and said, yes, but we refused his offer. And so I'm still waiting on their response.
We'll
Did they-
we'll light a little bit of a fire with them.
Did they get a UNO with if we didn't give them a sewer cert?
Well, we
That's a
gave
West.
them-
It's a West Conshohocken property, and they did bring themselves current on the outstanding consumption charges, right, Shannon?
Yes, yep, they paid that part. They're just holding on to the escrow piece. And actually, the escrow piece that we sent them is a little bit less because we got a new bill from Rudolph Clark.
Right, and the other piece of that puzzle is we're working with West Conshohocken Borough regarding there's still a performance security letter of credit that the borough is holding, understanding that there's a couple outstanding issues, including this. But the bulk of the amount that's outstanding was liened against the property.
Can we get a synopsis update in the interim between now and our next board meeting?
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the punch list items on that project, Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, they're very minor.
Yes, we've gone back and forth with Cal over at Pinoni. Well, the facts of the matter are that West Conshohocken approved the plans and holds a construction security, and that all took place prior to us purchasing the system. Therefore, they control it and not us. So we have made that very clear with West Conshohocken what those items are and what they need to be addressed. And we followed up twice with them on that.
Okay, then I guess, Lauren, Shannon, as information comes out on that, you'll, kind of give us status updates throughout the month. Okay.
Certainly.
So we have approved the financial report. Thanks, Felix, for bringing us up to speed on that. And now moving on to our solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Riley. And there are a number of action items tonight, so I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm just going to jump right to the action items to keep us moving.
Okay.
We have a number of items that we normally do at our reorganization meeting, but there's also a number of items related to the new interim executive director. So the first is the approval of a resolution establishing the authority's 2021 schedule of rates. These are all the same rates from last year, so there are no changes. We're happy to answer any questions, though I would direct specifics on the rates themselves to Ed's attention. But it's just your annual fee schedule resolution.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or anyone would like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Shannon?
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay, next up is an approval of a resolution authorizing the interim executive director as a signer on the authority's credit card account.
I'll
The
make that
title's
motion.
pretty self-explanatory.
Yep. I'll second. If I can second. Oh, Shannon, you're muted.
You're muted.
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
And excuse me, I have to run to the ladies' room. So, Vice Chair, would you take over for 3 minutes? You're muted, Vice Chair.
Yes.
All right, I'll be right back. Excuse me.
Okay, next up is the approval of a resolution authorizing the interim executive director as a signer on the small operating account. This is not the authority's larger account. This is a small operator account. The larger account does require signatures from board members. We previously had Stephen as a signer on this account, and I believe Shannon is a signer on this account as well.
What's the maximum amount that is in this account?
$1,000.
All right, I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Did I get here?
Roll call.
You hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're good. Okay, Janine Riley. Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay, the next resolution is one to authorize the interim executive director to execute developer easement agreements. This would apply to easements that were part of a development. So if they're dedicating over a sewer main or anything like that, it would be the easement area surrounding that. Anything where we're acquiring new easements from existing properties would still require board approval. And again, this is something that the board previously authorized Ed to do in his role as operations manager.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Janine Riley, Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is approval of a resolution authorizing the interim executive director to refund, waive, and/or adjust penalties for late payment of sewer rental charges under certain circumstances, not to exceed $100 per account per year, with any adjustments to be reported to the board on a monthly basis. This allows the administration to take care of minor refund requests without having to circle back to the board. And this is authority that was previously granted to Ed and Shannon in their roles.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Janine Riley,
Yes, I'm back.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
And the next item is the approval of a resolution authorizing the interim executive director to approve corrections to EDU calculations in accordance with recommendations received from the authority engineer. And again, this is a prior action taken by the board, and Ed was authorized to do this previously, so this would just be consistent with that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo.
I just have a quick question. Do we, if he makes an adjustment, do we get notified?
Yes, he would notify you as part of his monthly report. We just started this process, though. This was only passed in, I believe, November.
Can we add that in? I want to, it's not an emotion that he would have to notify us. My concern is that we wouldn't know when an EDU got adjusted.
I think the board can give Terry direction to make sure that that information, if any, is included in his monthly reports to the board.
Okay, I'll approve it. We'll have to see how it works.
Okay,
I vote yes, sorry.
okay. That's your Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
And we do have a couple of items that arrived in our office after we submitted our report. So if the board is of a mind, they are in a form acceptable to my office as well as Fred's office. One relates to Freely Square. The board will remember that this is kind of an older project, and there is a sanitary sewer main that goes behind or in the alleyway between the townhouses in this development. We have discovered that there is actually a sag in that main. The main and easement have never actually been dedicated over to the authority. So we have worked with the homeowners association, and they have executed a dedication of the sanitary sewer facilities over to the authority. So this would be acceptance and approval of a resolution accepting dedication of the sanitary sewer facilities for Freely Square.
I'll make that motion. That's something we've been trying to get to for a while.
Correct.
I'll second.
I have a question. Has Vinny been out there to tape and inspect this new sewer line?
He
Or they're
has.
wiring?
He has, and that's part of the issue is that this was built back in, I think, 2005. And it was not for reasons that it just wasn't dedicated over to the authority. And Vinny went out and discovered that there is a sag in the line. The board had previously approved kind of assuming that cost on the authority to repair that. But in order to do that, we had to set dedication of the facility and had to have an easement. We got the easement previously, and now this is for the dedication of the main itself. So then we can go in and do the repairs, which, Fred, I forget what the estimate of those repairs was.
I got to review. I think it was $14,000, but I would have to double check it. It is in a parking lot in a paved area.
Yeah, I thought so too, Fred. 12,000 came to mind for me.
Yeah.
This is one that would have been accepted in the normal course of the authority's business, but just we had no record of it being dedicated over to the authority.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I'll do roll call. Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay, the next one relates to the project at 133 Cedar Avenue in West Conshohocken. This is again an offer of dedication and approval and acceptance of a resolution accepting dedication for a sanitary sewer main. The board had actually already approved this, but it was with the developer. The deed of dedication ended up being reported after the transfer. So this is just approving the deed of dedication from the property owner directly rather than the developer.
Make a motion.
I'll second it.
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith, Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
The last item that I have tonight is just the acceptance and approval of a service and escrow agreement for the project at 331 West 7th Avenue.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Janine Riley, Carol Smith, Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan. Jane is
Jane, we didn't hear you.
frozen. She's there she goes. Nope, now you're muted. There you go.
Yes.
Okay, and that's all the action items I have this evening, which there were many, so thank you very much. But we're happy to answer any other questions that the board may have this evening. If there are none, then we would just ask that our report be approved.
Does anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make
That
that.
motion.
Sorry.
I think you've been freezing up a little bit there, Jane.
Yeah. My back hurts.
The internet's been funky all day. At my office, it went out literally, I think, every hour. On the hour, we were kicked off the internet. It was terrible.
Same for me.
Yeah, it's been intermittent everywhere.
It was. I think Lauren, you're in the same area that I am, right? Like Century Park, right?
Well, no, I was at remote today, so I was in Lansdale. I don't know what's going on. I think the weather, maybe. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a hailstorm today.
There was, yeah. Okay, So are we moving on? Did we do a
So
vote?
I was gonna say, was there a second? I heard it was, both of them said it at the same time, so,
I'll second Carol's
okay.
motion.
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
All right, moving on to the engineer's report.
All right, can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Good. First item is the Chapter 94 report. We received the majority of the information from the wastewater treatment plant. We're preparing a draft report, which we'll go over with the authority at the February meeting. It's going to be a very interesting one because it's going to tell us two things: the impacts of COVID, which I think are going to be equal and opposite. The loss of commercial flows over in West Conshohocken compared to the increase in people working from home in the borough of Conshohocken. And while the restaurants are down, the majority, there's significantly more residential. So I think it's really going to tell us that. It's also going to show us the 2019 was a wet year. 2018 was a very wet year. 2020 was an average year. So it's going to look at the inflow and infiltration that we have in the system. But as you guys will notice, you guys have almost no inflow and infiltration in your entire system. I mean, your annual average, even in a wet year compared to a max 3 months, is less than 60,000 or less than 6% of your max 3 months, which is incredible. It just speaks to the quality of the system and the robustness of it as well. And it really also speaks to, Vinny and all the guys, out there televising all the time. So we'll review that in detail next month. It does need to be approved at the March meeting, and I'd like potentially even get it approved at the February meeting. It's due to the DEP by March 31st of the year. Second item is the capital budget. I'm going to be meeting with Terry virtually this week. We're going to be reviewing everything, getting him up to speed on all those items, and then we'll schedule a meeting with Plymouth in the near future to review the capital budget with them and payment options. Next item is, and I just want to have the board concurrence on this, is the comprehensive EDU policy. We had discussed rolling out the letters to both councils, but right now, given the fact that the potential of the sale of the sewer system, as well as, just until business return to a new normal, is do we want to, consider pausing on this and review this at each month before we roll it out? Just with the sale being there, I'm not sure the timing is appropriate to do this, and we may be putting gasoline on a fire that doesn't need to be done at this time. But I'm looking for some board direction on that, or make sure that we're concurrent. And, if we do decide to pause it, I will bring this up at every monthly meeting, just to make sure that, whenever the board feels it appropriate, I'm doing the wishes of the board.
I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on this. I would think that perhaps we may want to pause, given, again, the situation and kind of we don't know what we don't know. I think it would be a good idea, Fred, as you mentioned, to bring it up every month just to kind of check in and confirm that we want to stick with that plan. I don't know if anyone has any contrary thoughts to that, but I do think, there's already so much information floating around. Adding more noise at this moment may not be the best way to go. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Agree with you, Janine. But, I'd let other folks speak.
Can you describe why a little bit more on the pause? We're not moving forward, or what exactly is the intent of a pause?
Well, with the next step on the comprehensive EDU was to draft a letter describing the policy to both West Conshohocken Borough and Conshohocken Borough. The reason for the pause would be that it would not be perceived as we are, doing something that would disrupt the operations of the borough businesses. So a pause would only be, and would be just to not avoid confusion and add additional items in there when they're considering the sale. If the sale is a prolonged process, then I think, we still have to go about our business. It's up to the authority board. We still have to go about our business no matter what our parent organization is doing. And I feel very strongly on that. But by the same token, I also feel that we could be our own worst distraction right now. And I'm not sure that that is where we want the focus of borough concerning sewer matters. I think we want to have the focus of the borough on all the value that we add and to keep us as a valuable asset of the community, and not to have this get somehow confused, get additional parties involved in this. That would be a distraction rather than focus on the most important aspect of the authority. So
if I could just jump in for a second, and I don't disagree with anything that Fred said, but I think, maybe my focus or my advice to the board would be a little different, and would be maybe not so much about the sale, but about the idea that this is really difficult times for businesses everywhere. And probably the businesses that are suffering and struggling the most are those that are in the service industry. And maybe right now just isn't the right time to do this. Maybe kind of, as Fred said, maybe this isn't the exact, there's going to be some certain things that are going to happen because of the pandemic, and certain other things that are going to happen. And there might be a shift to more flows out of residential and less out of. So it just might not be an appropriate time. It's not just about hurting the businesses, but you might not be getting the most accurate representation that you could be because of what's been going on for the last 11 months.
Well, and that being said, I think, again, Fred, to your point, if you bring it up every month and kind of remind us, and, Jane, kind of, I guess, in conjunction with that, we'll see how quickly, the borough is moving on, obtaining these bids and reviewing them and things like that. And that can give us some insight too. And then, the third factor, obviously, being, the pandemic and where we all are. And, hopefully by late spring, early summer, we're again seeing a more normal relationship and a healthy recovery for our businesses in the borough, which would, again, help them financially and also give us a more accurate representation of their actual usage. Is that fair to say?
I think it makes perfect sense.
I have a question for Mike. Should the motion be pause the policy, or that we are amending the policy?
I think Fred was about to say something.
Yeah, I don't think we're amending the policy, and I don't even know that I need a motion. I just think I need direction of the board that we're going to bring this up at every month until it's primed to send letters out to Borough Council. So I don't know that I need a motion or direct. I just need direction. I just don't want to do something. I want to make sure that I'm doing the wishes of the board and that we're all on the same page as to when we roll this out. Because I think it's a great policy. It's a question of rollout time there as we do it. I think it's something we have to do to be responsible to all of our customers.
And Felix, I would agree. I don't think it's, I would agree with Fred. I don't think you need to make a motion on this. I think the board just needs to direct Fred just to sort of, as he said, just kind of pause this right now, and we'll revisit it in February. And if your opinions change, and great. If not, we'll revisit it in March. And maybe Fred won't have to give a full-blown explanation each time. He could just say we're revisiting it now, and we'll just kind of see where we are. So.
No, understood. My question is more like, if we have a policy and we're not adhering to it, do we have to suspend the policy or pause the policy? I'm just looking on the proper language.
Yeah, I don't think we're as this isn't like an ordinance that the borough or the township would have that is we're bound by it. We're allowed to modify, pause, ignore our policies as we see fit. So instead of making motions to amend this, I think you're just directing someone not to do anything in furtherance of that policy. So we're not really changing the policy. You're just directing staff not to do anything in furtherance of it.
Okay.
All right. Next item is the liner project phases 2 and 3. The easements have all been completed. I believe we have submitted them over to the solicitor's office, and the next step will be then that the solicitor's office will finalize the license agreement with SEPTA. And what this is to allow us to have an easement and access across, and actually in this case underneath the rail track, so that we can install the liner. We have received 2 grants for phases 2 and 3. So as soon as we have that, we'll be able to bid it out. Because it has been a long, drawn-out process due to COVID with SEPTA, we may need to request an extension to the first grant that we've received, so we don't lose eligibility on it. I believe that it's valid unless it's been extended under COVID until June of 2021. So while we have time to bid it out, I think I'd rather be safe than sorry and risk any grant monies and get an extension on that. The other one we have plenty of time with, I know.
I think that sounds fair. I mean, is there, I guess, Fred, you just go and request that your people do that?
Yep. Yeah, we copy you guys and just on behalf of you, we request an extension. So
yeah, and I don't see why. I mean, again, if we don't need the extension, we don't need it. But if we do, we have it.
Exactly. Doesn't hurt to have it.
Yeah.
So I'll request that extension. We'll continue to work with the solicitor's office on the license agreement if there's anything they need there.
Is that again just direction?
Yep, just direction. I have what I need. And I'll coordinate with Terry on the grant extension. It may go in under his signature on behalf of the authority. So next item is on the operational assistance. As we reported last month, or I put it in the board, the solenoid was repaired on the belt filter press, and as a result, there was no liquid hauling because our guys are effectively decanting and utilizing it, so we didn't have to. Whereas in years past, we would have had the expense of liquid hauling. We did not here. There was a small tear on the influence screen. So that's bypassed by a manual bar screen, and that's out for repair and should be up and operational within a week or so, Ed. Yep. So
I would just like to say that decanting was a big deal doing that we didn't have to do the hauling. So I would just like that noted. So thank you, Fred and Ed, on that.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, it doesn't buy us a long time, but all these little minor ones where we would haul in the past, we don't have to do that anymore. There's never an emergency. 3 or 4 days is not a big deal, whereas before it would have been a big deal. Next item is on the odor control media replacement. Ed signed the notice of award. We sent that out. Next step is for the contractor to submit back the executed contracts and agreements, basically for them to sign it, submit their certificates of insurance, and all their final bonds. Once we receive them, and they're approved by the solicitor's office, we will schedule the pre-construction meeting and then schedule the delivery and installation of the odor control media. Next item is some quick updates on the developments. There's actually a lot of development going on right now, more of the small ones. Excuse me. But Sora West, we received revised easements. We actually asked them for a full set of revised plans, because if they're revising the easement, that means that they've revised the location of the sanitary sewer main. So we therefore ask for a full set of plans so that we can review it in its entirety to understand that. We have continued to follow up with the developer on those outstanding repairs on either side of the manhole. They have not been responsive yet, but they may need to respond to that before we approve the revised plans. That we will at least get a commitment from them. The previously discussed Echo Ridge, we continue to coordinate with the representatives, the engineer from West Conshohocken, because it's really their escrow account, their construction escrow that they're holding until they meet our standards. And we don't have a strong leg on this because it wasn't our standards. Our standards didn't exist at the time of the approval because it was prior to our sale. But what is shown on the plans, they still have to do. It's just up to West Conshohocken to enforce what's shown on their plans. And we have requested that and provided documentation of what's shown on the plans. The other ones are 331 West 7th Avenue. We issued a recommendation approving the plans on January 12th, and we approved the escrow agreement with them tonight. 340 East 9th, we issued a plan review number 1 on January 13th. SEPTA train station, we've received revised plans. 203 East 12th Avenue, construction's completed, and I believe that they are doing the televising of those mains. So it's a lot of small ones and twos, but everything's going through, and quite honestly, the developers seem to be complying, rather quickly and had very few issues either on the approval process or out in the field. That completes my report unless the board has any questions.
I don't think I have any at this point. Does anyone else?
No, I don't.
All right, well then, having no questions, would anyone like to make a motion to accept the engineer's report?
I'll make a motion to accept the engineer's report.
I'll second it.
All right, Shannon.
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith, Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yeah.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to our operation manager's report. Ed, the floor is yours.
Okay. All right, I'm happy to announce that Dustin obtained his CDL with his Texas license.
Oh, congratulations, good for him.
So he's good. So his next step will be trying to get his his collection systems operator's license.
Okay.
So there is a Mike Nelson course in June. It's an 8-week course that'll prep him for the exam, which will follow the course. In the meantime, in June, there is a smaller 1-day course. It's like a collection systems fundamentals class that I was going to send to that too, just to kind of make him a little more familiar.
Comfortable going into the 8-week class?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's been spending a good deal of time with Vinny in the collection, so he's getting some exposure already.
Oh, that's great.
Most of the month I've been busy just submitting reports. The end of the year for 2020, the December, the fourth quarter DMR, and then the 2020 annual DMR. They've all been submitted. I'm currently working on getting some information to Fred for the Chapter 94 and the 2021 Tier 2 report, which is for our chlorine on site. And there's a pre-treatment report for 2020 I'm in the middle of also. As you probably saw on Vinny's report, 273 PA1 calls in December.
Wow.
It's a lot. Our average is 70.
Wow.
And that doesn't count West Conshohocken. So, the only other thing I wanted to note was the last week or two, a lot more than usual, those calls have been emergency. Like we'll come in anywhere between 6 to 6:30 in the morning and get 6 to 8 emergency calls.
What do you have any idea what the reason behind that is, Ed?
Sometimes it's a measure to not have to wait 3 business days. Most of these are gas related, which is the bulk of these are they're replacing gas services from the main to the home.
Okay.
So it's kind of like an old trick. I can't say none of them are emergencies for real.
But essentially, it's a loophole. but it appears that a percentage of these emergencies may be emergencies for the individual, not emergencies as
it's not even that. It's the people, utilities just don't reply to PA1 calls, especially when they get this many of them. And the only way they can get somebody to respond is to call it out as an emergency dig. I've done it myself already, because if you don't, they don't mark it. And we had 3 major gas mains hit on a job in Bristol Road in Warwick Township. And the only way that we avoided hitting 3 more was by doing emergency calls. Because unfortunately people don't do it. And once you see a gas main get hit and, danger, how many families' lives, how many dads aren't coming home to their kids because somebody didn't do a PA1 call. That's why people do it. And then unfortunately the system gets abused. So it's not right. But that's what these guys that are out in the field are doing. They're saying, I'm not risking my life. It's an emergency.
And just to let folks know, if you're not aware of it, PECO has a subcontractor. Maybe it's Miller that's contacting you, Ed. I think that was the guy that was at my house. They knock on your door one morning and say, we're coming tomorrow to put your gas meter in. So the subcontract, PECO's going around Conchi right now, replacing internal house gas meters to the outside without much notice to the homeowners either. So I did call PECO about that, because they kind of harassed a lot of people on the street to move their cars and everything. And I was like, well, you didn't tell anybody, you give people notice. People are pretty responsive to you. So that is what's going on with those calls as well.
And I guess the reason I mentioned the emergency calls really is there's a 2-hour mandatory response to those. So that's really chews up a lot of Vinny's time. When you get 6 or 8 of them in there, he's got to really hustle to get them done. So that's probably what the bulk of his report is going to reflect.
Is there any, I don't know if I'm asking a silly question. Is there any way to try to, tell people to not make it an emergency and we will get to, no, they just,
No. We can't even get them to mark white paint like they're supposed to, but.
Oh.
And it's not directed at us, it's directed at the other utilities that are out there. And I see both sides on it. Is you can't continue to, cry wolf all the time and expect somebody to jump, because then you ignore it when it is a real emergency. But by the same token, these guys are out digging and they've called it in 3 or 4 days in a row, and all of a sudden it doesn't get done, or they get a change in their work plans and that's where they're working. Yeah, these guys they don't want something blowing up in their face. I get it. And ironically, I think our water or the water mains are probably more dangerous. Sewer mains aren't, but you can get water mains and things like that. It's not just gas mains out there that we're unfortunately probably the only responsive utility out there. I shouldn't say that. That's not fair.
Well, no.
Not all utilities are as responsive as we are.
Well, and I guess, Fred, and I will ask this again. Would again that be something that we're able to be as responsive because we are a municipal authority? Is generally, I guess, Aqua, if they were handling something like this, to be as responsive? Just in your experience, I don't know. Is this something that
no, I'll answer that question because I'll answer it on direct experience, and it's more. I was sort of using Aqua to depersonalize. I use PECO.
Yeah. Okay.
What Aqua people like that do is they go out and they subcontract a lot of this stuff, and as a result, those subcontractors and the gas mains we hit were improperly marked by subcontractors because they're not local. They don't know the utilities that are in the ground. They haven't lived here. They haven't seen them. And it's also not impacting the people that live around them. So clearly the historical knowledge of someone like a Vinny who's lived this system for 20 years and knows it, they're much more accurate than a subcontractor that gets a set of plans and he's been on the job for 2 weeks and he marks it where he thinks it is. They just don't have the historical and institutional knowledge. So that is one of the primary things that, and I lived it particularly in Warwick Township in Bristol Road. Warminster, we share a road with Warminster. It's a common load. The Warminster stuff was all very accurately marked. The stuff from PECO and the water mains from Aqua PA were not accurately marked. And as a result, we hit the water main and we hit 2 gas mains in a weekend. Yeah, 20-inch gas main. Yeah, I take that one a little bit more serious than everybody else because, I mean, I had friends out there. Maybe if they weren't my friends, all those guys out there are my age. I mean, they got kids. They're family guys. Because somebody doesn't mark their job right, somebody doesn't come home at night. It's PA1 calls are something I take pretty seriously.
All right. Well, then, I mean, I guess, Ed, from our perspective, thank Vinny for doing it, and
We'll do.
we appreciate it.
Yeah, and on that note, Vinny has gone out and televised our lines and given homeowners real trustworthy advice on blockages in respect to their laterals. And that's a nice thing that Vinny has done to so many residents, telling them where the blockage is actually at before they have to call a plumber at a very expensive price.
No, and I think I'm a little late to the, and this really isn't about your report, but Fred, I wanted to say it during your report. We talked about, and we talk about this every year because with our Chapter 94 reports, our I&I, being as good as it is, and being the municipal authority that we are, being able to do the infrastructure work to keep our system as healthy and well maintained as we do, I think is another important thing that, like I said, that doesn't. It pertains to you, but it was brought up in Fred's report for the Chapter 94 report, and I think that's important. We like I said, we talk about it annually, but it's always a good thing to remember.
It absolutely is. I mean, besides an all low pressure system, you're one of the tightest systems, and that's because you basically have a guy out there, a crew out there, televising and working on your collection system every day. There's somebody out there maintaining it, looking at it, notices when there's issues, notices when there's flows, developing that institutional knowledge. And that's why, I mean, have anywhere between a 3 to a 6%, increase. And even the wettest year on record, 2018, our annual average flow to our max 3 months went up by 3%. I have other clients, and I won't call out Terry because he has some knowledge of this one, but in Lower Make, we're at 200%. Our flow is double. And here we go up by 3%. It's unheard of. And a lot of it's the density of the houses. There aren't many mains. There aren't as many, it's all paved. Like, there's reasons, but the main reason is the maintenance we do.
For what it's worth, I want to add my voice to this. Those figures that Fred is citing are truly amazing. I've been involved with several sanitary sewer systems. I've never heard that. Okay, and inflow and I&I are very, very common problems. They prove to be very, very expensive to fix, which is why many communities don't have aggressive I&I reduction programs. So you're in a very, very good place right now.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, just to add one question. So you said Dustin's next, he did the CDL. Now he's going on to the collections. And is that kind of what we're talking about now with Vinny, like going out there? You said he's working with Vinny and looking at some of this stuff. So again, we almost, are now training our next, I don't say next gen, but essentially we now are getting a successor in place to continue to have that infrastructure knowledge and learn the system and really have the experience, because Dustin's only been with us a little bit of time, correct?
Since July.
Yeah. So the fact that he's already kind of on the ground and learning that, I think is again an important thing to note. And all right.
If there's no more questions, that concludes my report.
No, I think that's great. Thank you. I thought it was very helpful. All right. Anyone want to accept the report, the operation?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right. Shannon.
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Right. Now, before we move on to collections and maintenance, and I don't know if we want to do this before or after, but we don't have a line item or report from Terry. And I mean, obviously, Terry, you're just hitting the ground running this month. But I'm thinking that maybe, do you want a report, or is that something we
Yeah,
should?
oh, yes, absolutely. We can go
I mean,
for collection and maintenance, and then I'll follow
and then
that.
you'll do your report. Okay.
Yep.
And is that
That's okay with
Terry? Do you think that would? I mean, is that where you'd like to see your report every month, or do you just want to do that this month?
That's fine. We'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll put it there to start, and if we need to move it around, then we can certainly do so. All right. Then let's move on to collections and maintenance. Any questions? I generally don't think there have been many ever. But again, I would just say thanks to Vinny and for doing this and being as responsive to these calls as he is. We appreciate it. Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to accept the collections and maintenance?
Make a motion.
Guess I'll second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Kyle will second.
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
All right. Well then, and I guess we'll call this our director's report as we used to.
Okay.
Go ahead, Terry. The floor is yours.
If it pleases the board. First off, I would like to thank Ed, Shannon, Fred, Lauren, and Mike. You folks have been very generous with your time, bringing me up to speed on authority business. I want you to know that it's greatly appreciated, and it has helped to significantly compress my learning curve. So again, thank you all very much. I want to talk about COVID, and I want to refocus on our COVID policies and our mitigation efforts. As we know, there's been a lot of changes over the last 9 months. The science is changing, the CDC regs have been changing, and the laws have been changing. And starting with the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act, our solicitors, Mike and Lauren, sent out a memo to all of us a few weeks ago. I'd like to pick up on that and discuss that a bit. The centerpiece of that legislation was mandating up to 80 hours of special COVID-related sick leave, which, as we know, would be different than whatever any employee's individual PTO, contractual PTO. It was over and above that. And that was, of course, if the employee tested positive, if they were exposed to someone who had tested positive, et cetera, et cetera. That legislation, those mandates, federal mandates, expired at the end of last year. I'm recommending to the authority that we adopt our own special COVID leave program and essentially carry over the main what I would call the main component of the federal legislation, carry over the 80 hours. The 80 hours would be, as was with the federal legislation, proposed be some special sick leave. The employee would be eligible if they were unable to work because they were quarantined upon the advice of a healthcare professional or experiencing COVID symptoms and seeking a medical diagnosis or has tested positive. I would still rather maintain some sort of incentive for the employee to stay home if they have any of these conditions. There may be, I can't say for certain, but there may be some hesitancy on the part of an employee to stay home if they feel that they have to dip into their own PTO, their own sick leave, or again, in some cases, what you have are maybe 5-day sicknesses, 10, 14 days, but in some cases it could extend well beyond that. So that's my recommendation to you folks, and I'd like to, if it's okay, just have a discussion about that, pros and cons. You hear what my thinking is. I don't see it. I don't see where we're losing the authority, anything, and maybe gain a bit of goodwill with the employees. So that's my thought.
I mean, I would, I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are. I would agree with Terry. I think incentivizing people to stay home when sick, I mean, I think, you know, is a good thing, particularly right now. I mean, we are a small group, and to bring down, you know, a team or, you know, more than one person. I mean, it's unfortunate when anyone gets ill, but I think if we give people that, you know, safety net of saying, hey, you're not going to lose this. We have your back. We don't want you to, you know, number one, we want you to be okay, but two, we also want everybody else that you're working with to be okay. I don't think it's a bad idea. Any other thoughts? Carol, Jane, Felix, Kyle?
I talked with Terry about this before. I agree with him. I think it's to me, it seems to be a smart policy, considering that we're still in the middle of a global pandemic and that there are new COVID variants out there. And I think, you know, we have quite a few months ahead of us yet. So.
I just have 2 points. First, I'd like to check with the borough and see what the borough policy is on that. It might be a good comparison to see how they.
I agree.
Because they have 80 employees, so I think we should look at that for a little bit of guidance. And second, so this would extend if they've just been exposed and they need to stay home for 14 days, because I'm afraid that could get, how can I say, if you're in a big family, that could be repeated several times.
Well, they're capped at 80 hours.
Okay, thank you.
They're capped at 80, so it's the same as the federal legislation.
Okay, that was my concern, because I thought, you know, some families it's only 4 people, some it might be 8 or 12. You just don't know. So, okay, thank you, Terry. I'll get back to everybody about this. I'll find out tomorrow from Stephanie and just see, and maybe Lauren or Mike, you know policies at other small municipal authorities like ours.
This is fairly consistent with what we're recommending to our smaller entities, but it's also fairly consistent with what we're recommending even to some of our larger entities. It's, you know, becomes a little bit different with the school districts that we represent, because we're talking 800, 900, 1,000 employees. But for our ones that are 7, 8, 9, 10 employees up to 30 or 40, this is consistent with that.
And Jean, I mean, I can tell you just from I mean, obviously I'm not a municipal authority, but in my office, we're a small office and we're pretty much doing the same thing. We're an office of 12 or 13. I'm sorry, 13. But one of our people really isn't coming in at all. She just comes in at night and on Sundays because she doesn't really want to be around anyone.
Right. Okay.
Yep, all good points. And Terry, thank you for the email, giving us a heads up that you sent out on Monday at 2:57 p.m. I appreciate the notice so, we can think about these issues ahead of time.
Okay, so do I understand, Jane, you're going to get back to us with, what do you want me to do, I guess, at this point?
Should I contact you tomorrow? Would that be good after I
Yeah,
talk?
sure.
Okay, I'll do that then. I'll get back to you and,
Myself.
and then if you want to disseminate that to everyone else, that will be fine.
Okay.
Is that something that we will need to vote on or make a motion to, or is it just direction, Terry, for you?
Well, no, we can just do that. In terms of the policy, I would recommend, and I'm sure Mike would recommend, you have a resolution that lays it out.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay?
So we'll work with Terry to get that all in written form for next month then.
Great.
Okay, thank you. All right, vaccinations. Interesting topic. Well, as I said in my email, our employees, our business, wastewater, it has been classified in phase 1C, and currently the county is in the 1A phase of distribution. I'm not certain as to when 1B and 1C will be invited to the front of the line. I'm not certain if anybody really knows, but I would expect it to be in the next few months. With respect to our employees, I am aware that a few of our employees do in fact qualify for this phase 1A, simply because they're over the age of 65. I registered our business with the county's vaccination program. I believe that was an appropriate first step. They did respond. They acknowledged the registration, and in the emailed acknowledgement advised me that they are still in phase 1A and didn't give me any further information. Our employees still will have to individually go on the county's website and register on their own. There's a question, it's somewhat controversial perhaps. I want to just put out there for the board and whether or not there's any appetite, so to speak, for mandating a vaccine within our organization. And I'm just putting it out there because I think it's an obvious question. And we have, and I included in my email, a very, very detailed and thorough legal opinion. Thank you, Mike and Lauren and Leslie, who are involved in that. There's, I'd say, a lot of pros and cons for to mandate the vaccine for our employees. There's a lot to consider in terms of what was presented to us by our attorneys. I was hopeful that we could come up with some sort of incentive type of program. But I noted that there's some concerns expressed by our solicitors with respect to an incentive program. I'm hopeful we can in some way still figure things out along those lines, hopeful. But again, tonight, what I'm doing is putting this on your radar. And I recommend you just think about it and maybe we bring this up again in February. We don't, there's no rush. The vaccine isn't coming to us tomorrow. By us, I mean our phase. So I'm putting it on your radar. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Does anyone have any thoughts? I mean, is it something we want to address now? Do we want to wait a little bit? Do we want to think on it? I guess everyone have a chance to read the memo or the opinions. And
I think it's too early to actually say something. I agree with Terry that we should be aware of it and think about it. But you know, quite frankly, this is my opinion since you asked for
yes.
the vaccine supply. I think it's going to be a few weeks until that really gets stabilized. And I think Terry's right. Let's keep an eye on it and see how things play out. Work with the borough to see how they're doing things as well. And again, anything in my mind with COVID, you have to be flexible as situations change and we gain more information. So I think we're, you know, ahead of the curve with Terry thinking about this stuff now. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Can I move on?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. And finally, Ed and I are going to work on a more aggressive cleaning and disinfecting program. And for starters, I'd like the board to authorize the purchase of a fogging machine. I provided you with a link of one particular device that I'm familiar with. The maintenance staff back in Cheltenham, where I spent several months, they went through a number of different fogging devices, went to Home Depot, got a cheap one, didn't work out quite that well. And they landed with this particular device. It costs less than, I believe, something south of $900. And they feel it works very effectively, and they're using it for buildings, they're using it for police cruisers, they're using it for just about everything. So if it's okay with the board, I'd like you to authorize our use of that. Ed and I have been discussing what protocols we would put in place. One possibility would be that our employees who are coming to the plant on the weekends, that we would have them fog the buildings when nobody's around. That's the best way of doing it. And do that maybe once a week. At some point, Ed and I will be talking about a more aggressive sanitizing program in terms of areas of the building where there's frequent where employees congregate, the lunchroom, doorknobs, things like that. I think we can do a better job there. And associated with this, we'll be implementing here in a couple of days a new schedule for our employees' break times and lunch periods. We'll be staggering those breaks and lunches into 3 different groups, 3 different times, 2 different locations. We are close to figuring that out, and I'll be sending out a memo to our employees implementing that no later than next week. So again, I threw a bunch of things in there there'll be other things we'll be talking about and tweaking as we move forward. But for tonight, in addition to letting you know what we're doing, I'm hopeful you allow us to purchase the fogging machine so we can get moving on that.
I would just like to say,
Oh,
if
go
you,
ahead,
if you
Carol.
don't mind, a couple
Yeah,
things.
please.
I'm all for the fogging machine. You've used it at another facility. And what I really wanted to applaud with you is, again, we're all getting COVID fatigue. We're all absolutely sick of it. But the fact is, it's still here, and there's variants, and we have to play it out. And that Terry is taking this appropriately. Again, our team members there, as myself, I'm in the high-risk group. So you taking these actions to ensure the health and safety of our workers, I applaud that. So that's all I wanted to say.
I would agree with Carol. I second the purchase of the fogging machine. I think it's a good thing. And I think, again, to echo Carol's comments, I mean, we're all tired of this. I mean, how can we not be? But staying steadfast is our best effort. And again, not specific to our organization, but I heard a story. My employer, we have procedures, and we have to wipe things down and actually sign when we are after we wipe things down in the copy room and in the kitchen, and only one person's allowed in the kitchen at the same time. I mean, we have a host of requirements when we're in the office regarding sanitation and cleaning. And unfortunately, I heard from another from a colleague of mine who works with a different employer, or I'm sorry, her friend works with a different employer. They're also working in teams. They don't have all these sanitation measures in place, and unfortunately, they've had like 13 cases in the last 10 days of this group in the same team. So I would echo Carol's comments. I think staying steadfast, amping up our efforts more. If we didn't have staggered breaks and lunchtime, yeah, we have it now. I don't think it's a bad idea, and we remain steadfast and we keep everybody safe.
I think it's excellent. And I guess, I as a scientist who has studied this stuff and continues to pay attention to the data that's coming out, it's contact times. Most people don't think 6 feet is enough, and there are new variants that yet remain to be seen. So I think it's terrific.
I agree, and I think the fogger's an excellent idea.
The borough needs one.
We have one. I was actually
cool.
going to say. I don't know, Carol. I'm going to ask.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if we have one.
Might not be a bad idea.
Right. I know they have a contractor that does all the cleaning of the facilities, and no one's really going in the office. They do it, as you said, they alternate days, and it's 1 or 2 people at a time in the whole office.
Mm-hmm.
Ed had reached out to one contractor to get a quote for fogging and cleaning in general. And I believe it was on the order of $1,000 a week, Ed, or?
$1,000 a week every Sunday for a minimum of 4 Sundays.
For a minimum of 4 Sundays.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, I would certainly prefer to do it ourselves first and see if we're successful at it.
Well, you're more than capable, so.
I think our men are. Any other questions or thoughts? Is it okay?
I am for it. Do we have any folks who are against this?
Kyle or Felix, do you have any opposed thoughts, I guess?
Not opposed.
Not opposed either. I think it's a great idea.
All right. Well, then let's buy the fogger. Hello, Sam.
Okay. And again, I'll be coming up with a series of directives in terms of staggering lunches and other things. So you may I'll keep you informed as I go along, but you may be hearing that some changes are happening.
Okay.
Okay. At this point, I have nothing more for the board.
Okay. I don't know if that's an official report. Shannon, do we have to take a vote to accept Terry's report, or are we just going to start that next month? Mike, Lauren, any?
I think it's an official report, so I think it should be accepted.
All right. Let's take a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, I will second.
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess the last thing on the agenda is the old new business authority action item list. I didn't see, did that not make it in? Did I miss it? It's normally
What's on it?
was it, did I just miss it?
I don't believe that's in the report.
Okay.
I didn't see it, I didn't remember seeing that on the agenda before, so.
Okay. Well, then we'll just note there was none and we didn't take anything.
I did have a question in regards to, I know we're on a 5-year rotation. I was wondering, did we go through a reappointment process with the borough for our appointments that on the board here? Who's up and did they get reappointed?
I don't know.
I
Do we know
recently went through that process. I think this is like year 2 for my new 5-year term.
And I want to say me too, Kyle, or am I think you
I
and
may
I
be like right behind you.
I was going to say, I think you
forget.
and I are pretty lockstep because I think we joined together, right? Or very close.
Well, you might
Yeah,
have joined together, but the seat you filled is not, it might have been in a certain year.
You wouldn't have had the same terms.
Right.
Mhm.
It might have been
So,
appointed to a
Okay,
3
so
or 5. or
I
4
understand what you're saying, Felix. So yeah, one of us is always up for reelection, one per year.
Mike, do you know who's up?
hold on, I'm checking my notes.
I was 2016, so I'm up in 2021.
Because you're up this year. I was just recently.
Janine, I think you were 2 years ago.
Okay.
I think I was appointed for 2 years last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you know, I will tell you, Eileen has a master list, my assistant Eileen. And I'm trying to see if I can access it online, but I'm not really good at that. So tomorrow I can get Eileen to get the
Okay.
the master list. So
And I feel like we ask this question like not all the time, but often enough. So maybe, Mike, if we could just get an email or something to us that just like says for the next, like just so we can kind of keep it in our email bin.
Schedule in the Dropbox, maybe?
Or yeah, schedule in the Dropbox. Yep, so it's just something. Because I know we all ask it, and I know we go through this exercise. Like,
I used to get a letter from Fran Marabella saying your term's up. You want the spot, you got to reapply. Did the council interview anybody?
Not for the sewer board. We've interviewed for other commissions, but again, if I could check tomorrow, I'm sure Brittany would know.
Okay, just making sure we're on top of the housekeeping.
yep. No, thanks, Felix.
That's it for me.
All right. Okie dokie. So, I guess if no one has anything else, then do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Anyone want a second?
I'll second.
Jane seconds.
All in favor,
Okay.
aye.
Oh, we got to do roll call, Felix. You're in person.
Janine Riley,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo, Kyle Elliott,
Yes.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Yep.
Hey, everyone.
Be safe.
Everybody, good night.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.